And that book of Jonah is 1 page.
Book of Jonah less than 2 pages.
When they threw Jonah overboard, was he dead or was he alive?
When Jonah was thrown overboard, was he dead or alive?
The storm subsides and a fish comes and gobbles him up.
A fish comes and gobbles him up.
Dead or alive?
Jonah dead or alive?
On the third day, the fish vomits him on the seashore. Dead or alive?
The fish vomits him out. Jonah comes onto the shore. Was he dead or alive?
Alive, 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 alive.
Alive, 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 alive.
So it's a miracle of a miracle of a miracle.
Miracle of a miracle of a miracle of a miracle.
Naik's favorite argument is the sign of Jonah argument he mindlessly copied from Ahmed deedat. Now, Jesus' point is obvious to anyone who isn't desperately trying to reinterpret the Bible to make it line up with Islam. If you get swallowed by a giant fish in the middle of the sea, you're not coming out. If you do, it's a miracle. Similarly, if you die, if you get swallowed by Sheol, the abode of the dead, you're not coming out. If you do, it's a miracle. So Jonah escaping the fish was a miracle. Jesus escaping Sheol was a miracle. Pretty straightforward. But Muslim apologists love to twist Jesus' words to support their religion, so they insist that the only possible meaning here is that Jesus wouldn't die. Jesus mentions the sign of Jonah twice in the book of Matthew. He refers to the sign of Jonah in Matthew 12 and again in Matthew 16. Naik and deedat always quote the passage in Matthew 12. Why don't they talk about what Jesus says in Matthew 16? Let's find out. Matthew 16, verses 1 through 4. The Pharisees and Sadducees came up, and testing Jesus, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. But he replied to them, "When it is evening, you say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, there will be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. Do you know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but cannot discern the signs of the times? An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and a sign will not be given it, except the sign of Jonah." And he left them and went away. So the sign that Jesus would give them is the sign of Jonah. What is the sign of Jonah, according to Zakir, Naik, and Ahmed deedat?
Alive, 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 alive.
Alive, 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 alive.
Muslim apologists want us to believe that Jesus was telling the Pharisees and the Sadducees that he would survive crucifixion, be placed in the tomb alive, and then come out of the tomb alive. Let's read some more. And it's about to get worse. Same chapter, verses 21 through 23. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be... Yes, Jesus just said that he's going to Jerusalem and that he's going to be killed and be raised up on the third day.
Now, realize, ladies and gentlemen, this man put Christianity under the bus. He threw Christianity under the bus today. I asked him 4 questions. None of those questions were answered. None of those questions were answered. I asked
4
him,
minutes left.
where is the Trinity in 300 years? If it is a basic, natural inference of the Old Testament, how could you have 4,000 years of Hebrew history? No one has inferred it.
I guess we'll start off with the 4 questions. I knew we had more rebuttal time, and I didn't think they were too terribly difficult to answer, so let's go through them. Question number 1, why isn't the Trinity mentioned in the Old Testament? Well, I pointed out multiple passages where you find a plurality, and the question is why you have this plurality if it's just this pure monotheism that Muslims believe in. I quoted Isaiah chapter 48 verse 16, where Yahweh is speaking, and Yahweh says that he has been sent by Yahweh along with the Spirit of Yahweh. How do you make sense of that? You know what the Shema actually says? Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Now, we insert extra words in there to make that a complete sentence. What that actually says, hear, O Israel, Yahweh, it's the name of God. Eloheinu means our God. Yahweh means that's God. One. That's what it says. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, one. That's what it says. Names God 3 times and then says one.
I'm not here to argue that Islam is a pacifistic faith. It is not. Islam allows military action via certain limited context. And yes, a minority of Muslims do take it out of that context.
A verse that justifies whatever you happen to be doing? Or is there a coherent message about peace and violence? The Quran presents its own method of interpretation, the doctrine of abrogation. In Surah 2, verse 106, Allah declares, "Whatever communications we abrogate or cause to be forgotten, we bring one better than it or like it. Do you not know that Allah has power over all things?" According to the Quran, then, when Muslims are faced with conflicting commands, they aren't supposed to pick the one they like best. Rather, they are to go to history and see which verse was revealed last. Whichever verse came last is said to abrogate or cancel earlier revelations. When we apply this method to the Quran, we find that there are 3 stages in the call to jihad depending on the status of Muslims in a society. When Muhammad and his followers were only a tiny minority of the population, they were commanded to preach a message of peace and tolerance. If a Muslim had a disagreement with an unbeliever, he was commanded to quote Surah 109, verse 6, "To you be your religion, and to me be my religion." But the message of the Quran eventually changed. When Muhammad had gained a larger following and had formed alliances with various tribes, but wasn't yet strong enough on Muslims, he was ordered to wage defensive jihad. At this stage, Muslims are ordered to fight unbelievers, but only if the unbelievers do something first. A characteristic passage is Surah 2, verses 190 to 193. "In the way of Allah with those who hate you, and do not exceed the limits. Surely Allah does not love those who exceed the limits. And kill them wherever you find them, and drive them out from whence they drove you out, and persecution is severer." Revelations continued to change as the Muslim community expanded. When Muhammad and his followers became the most powerful force in Arabia, they were commanded to wage off. Surah 9, verse 29 of the Quran commands Muslims to those who do not believe in Allah.
And the planets in our solar system began as a giant cloud of smoke.
No, smoke is given off by the burning of organic material, things like wood, paper, coal, meat, and so on. The burning of organic material gives off small particles of carbon and carbon compounds. We don't refer to ordinary gases as smoke. There are all kinds of gases around you right now. You don't say that you're surrounded by smoke.
This theory was proposed by Emanuel Swedenborg, and then Immanuel Kant in 1755, he published this.
The nebular hypothesis now is significantly different from the hypothesis offered by Swedenborg and Kant, and there are critics of the hypothesis, but we'll ignore all of that because we want the argument. So, the solar system began as smoke. Now what?
1,100 years, 1,100 years before them, the Quran, it stated, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وَهِيَ دُخَانٌ. What is the Quran? And I'm going to give you the chapter and verse numbers so you can look it up yourself.
Oh, we're going to look it up, Sheikh.
In the 41st chapter, in the 11th verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He directed Himself towards the heavens and they were smoke.
Allah directed Himself towards the heavens and they were smoke. What does our somewhat generous version of the nebular hypothesis claim? That the solar system began as smoke. If you go to a university website, you'll find something like this. This is from the Columbia University website. About 4.6 billion years ago, our solar system formed from a cloud of gas and dust, which slowly contracted under the mutual gravity of all of its particles. The cloud was made largely of hydrogen with some helium and small amounts of the remaining naturally occurring chemical elements. The elements larger than helium had to have been produced in a supernova. So, elements in the cloud of smoke larger than helium had to come from a supernova, an exploding star. If you spend just a few minutes gathering the most basic details about the nebular hypothesis, you learn that, according to the theory, there were already lots of stars for billions of years. Those stars exploded, some of the debris coalesced in a certain area of space. A new star formed after 1 million years or so, and the planets were up and running much, much later. What's the sequence of events? Stars explode, cloud of smoke, new star, then planet.
The first chapter, in the 11th verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He directed Himself towards the heavens and they were smoke.
Here it is in the Quran. Notice that I blocked everything that Sheikh Uthman left out. Watch what happens if we simply finish reading verse 11. Then he turned to heaven while it was smoke, and said unto it and unto the earth, come willingly or unwillingly. They said, we come willingly. That's strange. The earth was already there alongside the cloud of smoke. A Christian sister in the crowd yells that Jesus is the way and the truth. Ali Sharknado says he agrees that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And Avery informs Sharknado that he just committed shirk because the truth, al-Haq, is one of Allah's 99 names. But Sharknado doubles down.
Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except for Him.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that?
In His time, yes.
Wait, what?
In His time, yes.
Notice that Sharknado repeatedly says no one can come to the Father except through Jesus, although he qualifies this by claiming that it referred to the time of Jesus. But who's the Father? He means Allah, right? So Allah is the Father, and no one could come to the Father except through Jesus, who is the truth, al-Haq.
There you have it, folks. Everything these guys say is likely an intentional deception that can be debunked with a click of a play button on YouTube. Jesus said, "You shall know them by their fruit, and here are the fruits of Dawah, and they yield taqiyah." Whenever these people quote a verse, as a golden rule, read 2 verses before and 2 verses after it. This is because the Bible is written in letters, not verses. So quoting a single verse is disingenuous and undermines the text. Do this with both the Quran and the Bible. Speaking of the Bible, whenever a quote is given from it, remember that it is a hyperlinked text, and sometimes the context is found in other letters.